Hey, everybody. Welcome to Michael Maher Live, the most originally named show on the internet. I don't know why my camera's not showing, but I think we'll find a way to get it turned on here in a second. But we just talk about stuff that helps brands to be relevant in today's day and age. So we are super excited and we, I mean, me because there's no other person here. But we've got Phil Rees. He's
I'm
the
here.
founder of ShipMax Ltd. And we are going to chat about whatever he wants to chat about. But I think he's got some stuff to tell us that there is these unsexy sides of being in business and the things that like I just started this skateboard company because I like skateboarding. And then you've got the like business side of it. And I think Phil is one of those people that can help you to maybe make it a little bit more fun. So welcome to the show, man. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. My name's Phil Rees. I'm the founder of a supply chain consultancy business based over in the UK called ShipMax. We're just getting into our third year of trading, and we operate in a space that's somewhere between the brands themselves or the merchants and the solution providers in supply chain that serve that market. So we talk to hundreds, thousands of brands really, and we touch all areas of supply chain from uh, initial sourcing of goods through to inbound freight, warehousing, customs, logistics, the whole thing, all the way through to returns. So I suppose we have quite a broad window on the sector, and yeah, I guess we're we're trying to be an independent voice in the market, whilst we have partners that we work with and solution providers who we rate and we know and trust and are always happy to refer brands towards. We're totally independent of any individual provider. So a brand can come to ShipMax for whole market advice on any area of their
Mm-hmm.
supply chain, and we'll just give them the best advice that we possibly can.
This is one of those areas. So I talked about the unsexy stuff. I mean, there could be sexy sides of shipping and logistics and supply chain. Probably not as much. It's not like marketing or advertising. And like in
It's not.
my business, Cartology, all we do is help brands win on Amazon. So we become that channel partner for
Yeah.
them. But I break it down into a couple categories. You've got creative. That's like your listing. Is it conversion ready? That's a sexy side because it's fun, it's brand, etc. Then you've got advertising, that's marketing. That's you can see dollars being earned in your organic visibility. Ad spend on Amazon is all about organic visibility. And then you've got catalog. And I feel a little bad for catalog because catalog is like, oh, you've got a compliance issue. We're going to help you to make sure your listing doesn't get suppressed. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of customer complaints, and so your listing could be taken down. We're going to help you with that. Oh, we need to submit SDS sheets. We're going to help. Like it's all these things that nobody wants to really deal with. But if you can do well, it makes all the sexy stuff work really well. And I've
100%.
had to do all that stuff before, especially when I was selling 16 years ago. And, now on the agency side, I'm not the one that you want to do, your catalog work, but it's such a necessary part. And if you can get that operational stuff right, I think it's actually as important, maybe even more important, especially from an efficiency and cost perspective. Like for supply chain, you get your supply chain down. That's only going to make everything else after the fact way more efficient.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, an e-commerce business, whether you sell through marketplaces or direct to consumer through Shopify, it's a supply chain orientated business.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it just is like, in a typical brand or retailer, supply chain's almost always the second or third biggest area of cost behind the product itself. And it
Mm-hmm.
is, it's what I refer to as the gray haired old man side of the industry. It's not the sexy stuff. We're not merchandising. We're not
Yeah.
developing the next thing that's going to sell a gazillion units. We're just making sure that what gets to where it needs to be, gets there on time and in full and intact and doesn't stall at customs or
Yeah.
doesn't get, rejected by the warehouse because the pallets have been built wrong and all of that kind of stuff. So, when it works well, it sits neatly in the background and
Right.
nobody really hears about it. When it goes wrong, the whole business know about it because they can't sell that thing they've been working on for the last 9 months that was going to be the next big hero product for the brand.
When when I think about why Amazon was successful, yes, they're good at marketing and all this other stuff. But the reason, like the core reason, I like to try and get down to the most, simple explanation possible. And it's because they deliver on their promises. I mean, literally and figuratively, but like their supply chain network is so complex in terms of getting something from their warehouse to me. The whole reason that I see, today from 5 to 10 p.m. is because of their supply chain. And that's why conversion rates are higher. So, like, you're absolutely right. When it works really well, people are excited about it. When it doesn't work well, or people are, I would say, people are just excited, to be alive. When it doesn't go well, then it's like, everything's pointed back at you. And it's like, what's going on? Why is this working well? So it's,
Amazon has become a supply chain business,
yeah,
like
exactly.
look at obviously, they started off selling books online. We all know that. We know the
Hmm.
history and the story of the bell that didn't stop ringing and all of that fun stuff. But the reality is that, the reason they've dominated in the way that they have and become the global player that they have is because they they realized very, very early on that they were a supply chain focused business, and they've optimized throughout that. They've acquired businesses, they've spun up Amazon Logistics and all of these things that,
Hmm.
we now just don't really even think about, but they're all, they are the, it's the perfect example, because, they are a global supply chain based business that just so happens to give you those products that you need quickly and on time. And it all just, to the retail consumer, it just happens by magic in the background. But we all know in the industry that there's no
Right.
magic.
Well, and that people start to notice and pay attention. Like, my item's not here in 2 days. What happened? Like, it's very rare. It has happened recently. Like, hey, your item's delayed. You get that notification from your Amazon app. It happens. Do you need that thing in 2 days? Maybe you do, because you're gonna be out of town. But I think it's like now more cultural too. Like,
Hmm.
my daughter will ask my wife to buy something for her, and then she'll say, "Do you have an update on the tracking information? Like, where is it? Where is this product right now?" I
They've
was
become
not
really impatient, right?
I
That's
was
the
not
thing.
doing that as a kid. I mean, we were going to like stores, to get stuff, but like
Yeah.
that's now even an option, which is just crazy to think about.
That's it. I mean, we're a different geography to the US over here in the UK, right? We're a small island. I think you could fit the whole of the UK inside of the state of Texas. So here, retail consumers now, like online shoppers, they want to be ordering late into the evening, and they want to see that thing on their doorstep the following day.
Yep.
That's the standard. And I worked with a nutritional supplements business recently, and that's how they've constructed their entire business. And I mean, this is a retailer that's gone from zero to 180 million in revenue in about 4 or 5 years, and it's
Wow.
because you can order your creatine, or whatever it is that you're ordering from them at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and it'll still be delivered to you next day, through your door.
Yeah.
So, and we have a review site here. Obviously, it's a global review site, Trustpilot. I mean, this particular
Yeah.
business that I'm referring to, they have more 5-star reviews on Trustpilot in the UK than any other business. The only other business that has more five
Wow.
star reviews than these guys is a business called Octopus Energy, which is a utilities provider,
Man.
providing, like, gas and electricity to people's homes. So yeah, it's super important. It probably doesn't get its props in the
Yeah.
industry, I would say, because it's not sexy. But if you're going to succeed and you're going to grow, particularly internationally, and scale your brand, then you've got to dedicate resource to it, or bring expertise in at some point, because without it, you're just going to fumble around in the dark.
Yeah. And no brand wants that. No consumer wants that. The compliance side of things is very tricky, and it can be a really big hold up for brands that you work with. And I know that we were
Yeah.
talking, before we went live, there are some things at play right now that are impacting brands, and maybe they know the depths of that, maybe they don't. Like,
Mm.
what's that thing that's happening right now that people need to know about, that could, if they handle well, could actually help these brands to traverse the challenges better than all the competitors and be someone that gets 5-star reviews on Trustpilot?
Yeah. So I know we touched a little bit on this ahead of going live, but I suppose the pattern that we're seeing is probably the easiest way to describe it. And it started last year, right? January of last year. Obviously, Mr. Trump gets the bit between his teeth on tariffs and the U.S. market being flooded with, cheap products from China,
Yeah.
right? The likes of Shein and Temu and AliExpress and all of these enormous Chinese businesses were, I think I forget the statistics, but they're mind blowing. You can Google them, but it's something like, I don't know. I'm going to get this wrong, so people will call me out. But it was something like 100 million parcels, or let's say 10. I think it's probably 10. 10 million parcels a day were arriving into the US from overseas, and
Man.
80% of those parcels were coming from those three Chinese retailers. Right,
Wow.
stopping people buying US brands. It's undercutting the market
Hmm.
domestically. So of course, we all watched the news. We saw how that played out. He introduced tariffs. Then for certain countries, he relaxed them a little bit, but he removed the $800 de minimis threshold. I've been in e-commerce for nearly 20 years, 15 years the timeline that I've been talking to brands and retailers along. And for UK based retailers, it was always really easy to serve the US consumer from your UK inventory, right? Because we had $800 de minimis to play with. There was loads of parcel options and postal options. You could get your parcel delivered from a warehouse in the Midlands, in Birmingham, in the UK, to a consumer in Texas in typically around 3 to 5 days was the normal transit time that people would position on their website. Now, and more or less no customs control. They just fly into the US market, land,
Yeah.
be injected into United States Postal Service or whatever, and then they'd be delivered to the consumer a day or two later. Obviously, all of that flipped on its head once duty got introduced and the tariffs and the de minimis was removed. So what that prompted was a load of UK, European, and overseas retailers to have to rethink their supply chain and go, okay, we still have this demand from the US. We still have this enormous pool of,
Yeah.
100 million online shoppers or whatever the number is. So we have this enormous demand, but it's costing us more and more every time we ship. And sometimes the things are getting held by customs. They're not even making their way to the consumer. So then that's potentially a negative
Mm.
review or a return that they've got to deal with. So the US moved first. Then in July of this year, we saw a very similar move. They wrapped it in a different wrapper, but the European Union did away with their €150 de minimis threshold from the 1st of July
Mm.
this year. So now every parcel that ships from outside the European Union in attracts a €3 duty surcharge, and that's per HS code in the parcel. Now, what does
And
that
that
mean?
there's no, like you said, there's no limit. So if your product is $10, you get a
Correct.
$3. I mean, that's a
Yeah, I mean,
you're
if
dead in the
let's
water.
say, if you're DC and you sell, sweatshirts, if somebody orders two, three, five sweatshirts from you, that's one HS code, that's one €3 surcharge. But if they order a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, maybe a pair of sunglasses and a baseball cap, that's four HS
Man.
codes. Yeah, four
Yeah.
unique products. So that's a €12 surcharge on that parcel. So again, now the trend that we're seeing, because we do a lot of advice around finding suitable 3PL partners for brands.
Hmm.
So the trend that we're seeing is brands that had always served the European Union from outside, direct to consumer, are now looking to hold a proportion of their inventory. Maybe it's not the entire inventory, but maybe their hero products at least. They're looking for European warehouses where they can clear customs as a a kind of a large transaction, pay the relevant amount of duty on the entire consignment, and then ship direct to consumer without those individual €3 surcharges, which
Yeah.
quickly add up and become cost prohibitive. The UK is the next major market to move that I'm aware of. We have at the moment £135 de minimis threshold. So if you're an American brand selling to the UK consumer, as long as the basket value is under £135, then typically there's no duty to pay at the point where the parcel clears customs. but that's getting removed. Rachel Reeves, at the time, our chancellor said that that's going to be gone by 2028 or 2029.
Okay.
I'm not sure on other consumer markets. I mean, Canada's always had a low threshold. I think it's 20 Canadian dollars.
Okay.
So they've always had the bar set low anyway. But I would imagine, and I don't think there's been anything official announced, but we're going to see other markets moving in the same direction. Australia, New Zealand, those sorts of places, I think will follow suit with the UK, the US, and the EU over time. So
I mean, is the
whereas
desire for brands to these other, sorry to cut you off, but I'm
no,
curious,
you're fine.
these other retailers that are, like the Timus and the Alibabas, et cetera, is the desire to have that inventory be here so that it can be a better experience for consumers and that they have to actually put money into infrastructure here? Like, is that the desire for removing that? So it's not just, hey, we're shipping from China?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay.
like, if you take Timu and Sheen as the example, like
Mm-hmm.
in preparation for the introduction of the €3 duty surcharge, they've set up enormous warehouses in Poland and Germany and the Netherlands because they can still send the product into the European Union in bulk. Pay the relevant amount of tax, but on a cost basis rather than on the sale price, and then fulfill their orders from a Polish warehouse or from a warehouse in Germany to the consumer. So, you know, yes, these guys are enormous. Yes, they're playing with vast inventories and
Mm-hmm.
much bigger numbers than probably most of the people who are going to be tuned into the show. But it's, I guess, a warning sign or a bellwether that, if these enormous Chinese sellers are moving in that direction, guess what? You're probably going to want to follow suit over time and do the same. And as I say, we're advising brands around that a lot. And one of the things I think that brands trip up on when they look at this is, they might see it as like a binary move, right? So if
Okay.
let's say you're in fashion, right, and you have a really broad inventory, like DC, that you sell trainers, you sell t-shirts, you sell baseball caps, sunglasses, the whole lot. It might seem an enormous project and task to try and get a mirror of your US inventory into the European Union overnight. So what I
Mm-hmm.
always say to these brands is, okay, don't try and get everything there from day one.
Yeah.
Start with your hero products. Like, Pareto principle usually applies. Like, 20% of the inventory accounts for 80% of the sales,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, okay, rather than this big binary move of trying to get everything that you've got in the US or the UK into the EU, look at what's selling in the EU. Follow the data, follow the numbers. If you're going to service 20 or if you can service the demand primarily from a European warehouse, then if you are still paying these surcharges on 20% of the parcels rather than 80%, that's way better than paying it on 100%. So
Yeah.
we try and provide some clear guidance around that. It's hard to give like broad brush sweeping answers, right? Because if you've got three SKUs, let's say you're in the nutritional space and you sell collagen, creatine, and I don't know, something else, another supplement, then of
Yeah.
course you can move your entire inventory in there because there's only three different products that you
Yeah.
actually have to have on the ground. But if you're in fashion and you've got sizing and different colors and different
Oh,
categories of products,
especially
then
with the amount of variations. And I mean, in
yeah,
that case, I'd say just move all the items. If you're in clothing and fashion, just move everything that's black and let the
yeah,
rest of it, because
yeah,
we know that's what's going to be most popular anyway. But like, there's a lot of complexity to it. It's not just how do
there
I
is.
do this. And to your point earlier, like a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Like, just take a step in the right direction instead of being fearful and pausing and saying we can't do anything about it because, or this is too complicated. We're just throw our hands up. Like, there is a way to do it. You're obviously helping guide people through that, but like,
Mm,
find a way to start. That's like, I feel
correct.
like the entrepreneur's journey of like, just get started. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but like, you'll start it, you'll figure it out. And I know some people are way more inclined to do that than others. Some people like to measure 5 times and then cut. And I'm like, I'm going to measure maybe once and then I'm going to start cutting, and I'm okay with
I'm the
some
same. I
mistakes.
charge into things and
Yeah,
never
but
win.
you got to be okay. You got to be okay with that. But like, don't let the size. There was there's a comedian named Hannibal Buress, and he has this really funny bit where he says when things get really cliche, people start to say, or when things start to get really hard, people say really cliche things like just take it one day at a time. And then he says, isn't that how everybody's been doing it? Like, do you know, like, do you have some kind of special way to take things a week or a month at a time? Like, how does that work? It's like, you have to take it a day at a time. So, like, what's the thing you can do today that will help you get where you want, tomorrow?
Yeah. And I think like preparation is key in this. Like, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on which way you want to look at it, customs, supply chains, they're complicated things. And I think, plan the move carefully, get the right advice, come to Shipmax, we'll do what we can to help you. But if you need a specific type of advice or guidance, we'll often refer those brands on to very specialized partners. So, I work with a team of indirect tax accountants, and
Mm,
they help brands get ready for US sales tax when they're entering that market, or get
okay.
their European VAT or overseas registrations in place. That it's very specialized what they do. So, if somebody comes to us and they want to sell in Germany, let's say, but they haven't got a German VAT number, they don't really fully understand what's involved, then it's like, okay, slow down, go and map this out, go and get the right advice, talk to the right people, understand what you're moving into. Because the problem with compliance and customs compliance and things like VAT in particular is if you get that wrong, then
Yeah.
what comes can come 2 years later or 3 years later. You can get a backdated bill from the German VAT man, saying you owe 70, 80, 90,000 euros of backdated VAT because you've been importing your goods in the Netherlands, paying import VAT in the Netherlands, thinking that's cool, but then not realizing that actually you were due to pay sales VAT in Germany because that's where the sales being
Yeah.
made.
That just sounds like a huge nightmare.
Yeah, it can be a huge nightmare, but the right advice is out there. Go looking for it, speak to professionals. I mean, the guys that we work with on that whole kind of tax compliance thing, they're very generous with their time. They'll always talk to a brand or retailer, tell them, if what they're doing is going to land them in hot water. Obviously they're going to try and sell their services and,
Sure.
all of that kind of thing as you'd expect. But and that's just one area. You've then got product and labeling compliance, and packaging compliance. Now there's new packaging regulations that the European Union have pushed through, which is all about sending less plastic to landfill, and being able to know what the life cycle of the product is when it's no longer required. So
Mm,
yeah, it can be a bit of a minefield. Listen, we all have Chat GPT or Claude or these things, so you can do a lot of the research in those
hmm.
LLM tools. They're really, really helpful for this. But when it comes to going beyond research and putting things into action, that's probably the
Yeah.
point to then go and speak to either a business like ours or to a tax specialist and actually get somebody's expertise rather than just what the LLM's telling you. Marry those two things together and move ahead with a solid plan that's not going to wind you up with a big unexpected bill 18 months or 2 years down the line.
I love that. Be informed about what you want to do, but once you get to the point where you know you need to take action, like start talking to someone because there are people that can help. So, Phil, thanks so much for coming on, man. Tell people if they want to know more about what you're doing at ShipMax, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, so our website URL is shipmaxinternational.com. You can reach my team at hello@shipmax.co.uk. We're big on LinkedIn, so that's a good place to look me up if anybody wants to connect with me. I always accept connection requests, so feel free to look us up there. We're just about to launch with a load of new social media stuff and a new website. So yeah, keep an eye on us on socials and on LinkedIn, and hopefully, we try to put content out that's not just promotional for Shipmax, but
Yeah,
also helpful for the e-commerce community. So definitely give us a follow wherever you see us on social media, and if you've got something that's causing you, grief, feel free to
talk to
reach out
Phil.
to us. We'll always try
Talk
and
to
help.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, TM. Well, thanks, man. We appreciate it. All right, everyone. That's all we got for today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.